Hello and welcome to Lower League Lingo. We're up to episode number 57 here on All for Women's Football. And on the other side of this, we'll be running through everything that's happening in Tier 5. Yes, it's that time of the week where we start to look through all of the things that are not WSL related, not international related, not the big fish, but certainly the heartbeat, I think, of women's football, which is, of course, the lower leagues and divisions. I'm delighted to be alongside Gareth as normal. Gareth, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to be back. I think it's been a while since we talked about Tier 5, so looking forward to it.
It really has. As I was going through the leagues today and typing them all up, I thought to myself, good God, actually, there's quite a few changes compared to how it's been before. Not so much necessarily at the top, but there is a lot of changes in the run up and in the build up, which is really quite exciting. So we shall see how that goes. Evening to you, Claire. Lovely to have you here as well. Nice to see that you are watching Portsmouth beating Charlton at the moment. I hope you're enjoying that and enjoy having us in the background as well. A very dedicated viewer is our Claire, because I didn't realise that actually last week when she jumped on, it was actually half time in the Fulham game, and she was there. She just jumped on, and I saw it on there on Twitter. She'd sent us a lovely little picture going half time. I might jump on, and she did, which I think is really quite cool. So lovely to see that, Claire. Thank you very much. We are expecting Stu. He should be with us soon, children permitting. He's currently managed to soothe one into the land of Nod, but the other one is going kicking and screaming by the sounds of things. It does not want to go. So we shall see how we get on. Yeah, I mean, if it was the men, you're probably right at the moment, but I know how you feel, United fan here. So it all makes sense. Right, we are going to run through the 8 divisions as we normally do. We're going to have a little run through, see what we think about these teams and how they're getting on. We're going to start, as we so often do, in the north. I'm going to the Northwest Women's Regional League, and this is where it's all starting to show, Gareth. This is where you will explain better than I, but we do have one side that are mathematically viable now in terms of it's their time. They are gone. There is nothing they can do about it mathematically unless teams above them lose some points for some negative reasons, which we're not expecting. So as it stands, they will be gone, and that is, of course, Curzon. Ashton, Fleetwood are not a million miles, I don't think, from being in the same situation, but there is still a glimmer, the slightest glimmer of hope for them. Other than that, though, all happening at the top. And we always have that conversation. What would you rather have? Points on the board or games in hand? And we've said this now for a couple of divisions, certainly doing the WNL, but Filed are in, you would imagine at this point, dreamland. 3 points clear, 3 games in hand. I mean, this is now literally their title to lose, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. I also think that um, my understanding, I may be wrong. Um, I think they're promoted. Worst case scenario as one of the best second place teams. I'm not sure quite how it shakes out in terms of kind of points per game and things. But I think if even if they, I don't know kind of if that's mathematical yet. But I think realistically, if they manage to not win this league, then they will end up going up as one of the best second place sides anyway. Um, I think it's unlikely that they're going to go and lose, 6 games between now and then. But yeah, I think it is theirs to lose now. Unity have 3 games left. The most Unity can achieve is 52 points, which would mean of their remaining 6 games, Filed need to win 2 of them, really. and then get a result from elsewhere. Considering that they've only drawn one game between the end of the entire season, I don't see really a way that they don't win this. Um, those two games means that they have the better goal difference, and would then need to lose all four of the others to not do that. Um, their points per game is madness. At the moment, it's 2.88 points per game, which I think as we go through today, that is going to be the best. Unity's, is currently slightly lower, but Mancunian Unity's is 2.26 their points per game currently, which I also suspect will be up there as one of the higher if they win their remaining final three. 52 points with 22 games played, would end up being 2.36 points per game, which I do suspect possibly be enough. Um, I would be surprised if they're not the two sides that are promoted. And I think both of them would be incredibly welcome additions to the National League. Filed obviously with their last season, have come down, have bounced back in a fantastic way. I think they've got a really good squad, a combination of like good young players, experienced heads in there as well. And Unity have had a fantastic rise. I think they've had two good FA Cup runs. They knocked on the door last year. Withenshaw, they pushed us all the way. Fell off kind of towards the end. I think they focused eventually on County Cup games and things like that. Um, and yeah, I think you go to the bottom end of this league, and that is in stark contrast. Curzon are mathematically done. They have had 6 points deducted this season. So Fleetwood only had 3 points deducted, but they have lost all 14 of their games. Um, I think they are not mathematically done, but they, to all intents and purposes, they're toast. Um, we do, however, have a particularly interesting fight between Bolton and Tranmere. I think will end up being one of those two sides for that final relegation spot. I think Bury up are probably comfortable, and I think FC United, being 5 points and 3 games clear, will be okay, especially considering that one of FC United's game in hand over Bolton is against Fleetwood. So, I would be unsurprised if Fleetwood don't lose that game as well. So I think FC United will be fine. I think Bolton and Tranmere is a really, really interesting relegation battle. Tranmere have been in this league for a long, long time. Have had County Cup success recently. They, beating Stockport County and things in finals of County Cups. Whereas Bolton, promoted last year, will be looking to try and stay up. We just take a quick look at their final 3 games. Bolton have to play Bolton Wanderers twice in back-to-back weeks. So this weekend and next weekend they play Bolton. I think that will be tricky for them. But final game of the season on the 29th of this month, they are away to Curzon Ashton. That will be, a huge game for Bolton and a chance to get them to 20. I think that might be, 20, 21 points where they shake out by the end of the season. If I was making predictions, Tranmere do have a tricky run of games. They have FC United this weekend. That's huge. Then they play Fleetwood. So you imagine that there is a chance of picking up 3 points there, which take them to 20, take them to 21 points. And then they have Unity and Filed for the final 2 games of the season. So you suspect that Bolton will end on 20. They need to get a result against Bolton in order to get any more than that. Tranmere, if they beat Fleetwood, then that would move them to 21. I think they might just be safe. Obviously, if they get anything against FC at this weekend, that will move the needle closer there as well. That would then rely on Bolton having to go and get something against Bolton Wanderers, which, although they've not had the season that they would have been hoping for, it is a tough ask for a side like that. But I think when you're a side with nothing to play for, like Bolton, they don't really have anything to play for. They're playing for positional pride, really, in terms of where that shakes out in the league. If you've got a wounded animal, which Bolton Vicks absolutely will be, they'll be scrapping hard to try and get the points they need. I think it's going to be so close between them. I think based on the run of games and having that game in hand, Tranmere may well be the side that end up staying up, and we may say goodbye to Bolton, which would be unfortunate. But yeah, that's going to be one hell of a scrap, and may well come down to that final game of the season. But massive game this weekend: Tranmere versus FC United.
Yeah, might well do. You're quite right there, and like you say, I think this is one of those leagues that has definitely got the potential to be incredibly interesting in the running. The filed Mancunian Unity one, it will be exciting to see, but very interesting to hear your points on points per game there, because I have, prior to the show, gone through all of the second place teams and what they're currently on, and also what I believe the second place team, if they won all of their games, would be on. There's only one division where that actually changes from being the team that's second at the moment. And it was interesting that you said that. Mancunian Unity, even if they finish on 2.36, would be actually, of all of the groups, if they were to win all of their games, they would be 8th out of all of the 8 divisions, which gives a really good example of how strong some of these other divisions have been, because you would think 2.36, you think that's really, really good. You'd be quite chuffed with that as a points per game, which I think just goes to show how the quality has been in Tier 5. I'm delighted to say that Stu has finally made it and he has settled in his space. So let's bring him in. Stu, hello, how are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Yes, although my light bulb is changing, so if you have to excuse me if I have to dash and move. I'm not having a party. We just seem to be blessed with some strobe lighting.
That could be good. I suppose I should probably have a little thing going on the bottom, just warning people if they're photosensitive, just to be sure. But we got a light like that at school, and it keeps on me out as well. But you'll be all good. It's not a problem at all. Right. Well, with Stu being here, that's great news. We're going to take a quick look at the West Midlands. There's no John, obviously, as you can see. So we're just going to throw it out there and have a quick look at how that division is shaping up, because there's things to look at here as well. So you can see Lytown have made it to the top of the division. They're on 35 points, 5 points clear of Redditch Borough, who were top of the table when we last looked at Tier 5. So a little bit of a switcheroo going on around there. Shifnal Town, 10 points off of the top. They've got 4 games in hand, though, so they've still got the ability to get themselves above Lytown if they were to win their games in hand. Shrewsbury Town could level up with Lytown as well. So there's a lot going on up there at the very, very top of the West Midlands that is worth looking at. Down at the bottom, very similar sort of situation. Alchurch on 6 points at the moment, Burton on 7, Camden Court on 11. So it's by no stretch of the imagination over when it comes to the relegation scrap either. This weekend, not a huge amount happening in the league due to some cup games going on. There's some county cup games going on, some league cup games going on, but Lytown will face Port Vale and Leek Town will face Hednesford as well. So there will be some interesting games there, but really it's just an opportunity for Lytown to go even further ahead, and that will really be helpful with the old points on the board scenario that we talk about. There's also League Cup games happening on the 22nd of March. So the next couple of weeks, sort of a mixture really of league games and cup games. But I want to open up to the pair review as well. Your thoughts as it stands on this division, how it is looking at the moment. Burton and Alvechurch just had a game, just played this weekend, and they drew 3-3. So that was their opportunity to try and pull back Camden Court. Didn't quite work out. So yes, Stu, Gareth, anything you would like to bring up on this one?
Okay, I'll jump in. To be honest, I think it's one of many leagues that are pretty much done, barring a couple of injuries here or there. I think I'd say League Town, most likely they're safe. Obviously, the teams at the bottom have been struggling to pick up points, and I think they'll be fine. Coventry Sphinx, quite a few games in hand, but I think the best they're going to get is something mid-table. Redditch Borough, I guess a lot will, call me Captain Obvious, but a lot will depend on their game in hand. If they can get something, if they can win that, then it keeps it interesting. But I would put my mortgage on that pretty much finishing in the same way it looks, maybe with 2 or 3, maybe 4 changes in the middle of the park.
Well, fun fact for Redditch, Stu, just throw it out there for you now. The next 2 league games are Alvechurch at home, Alvechurch away, Burton Albion at home, and then they finish off with Shifnal Town.
I think that one's done.
I think it's interesting, isn't it, when you look at the kind of games in hand, because it kind of gives a false position to some of the league, doesn't it? Live drawn 5 games, which is, that's 10 points dropped. Shifnal Town are 4 games behind, but only 10 points. Now, obviously, it requires a good run and winning all of those 4 games, but that would put them back ahead of Lie Town. So I think if you look at the kind of the top 3, there's not really much of a title race there. But actually, I think Shifnal are sitting kind of lower down in that table, sort of waiting to pounce. And normally, like I say, I'd rather have points on the board than games in hand, and this is a reason why. Because you're starting to get to this point now where they're probably going to need midweek fixtures to kind of get through this, and that's always tricky for things like availability, people, work commitments, etc. Midweek games are a bit more difficult. So yeah, certainly interested to see how this is going to shake out. I think if you don't lose any games in the season, you are arguably some of the favourites for promotion. But drawing 5 of them could, I think, I don't think it necessarily will, but could come back and bite Lie Town. We know Shifnal ran Kidderminster close last season. I am to be believed. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they manage to shake out once they've played their 4 in hand.
Yeah, it certainly will. And like you say, Shifnal and Shrewsbury, both with definite opportunities to get themselves there. But as Claire says there, it's mad to see that there are teams there still halfway through. Coventry Sphinx only playing 10 of their games, and it's such a disjointed sort of season, really. And that always happens at this level because there are some teams that play on 3G, some teams that play on grass, and so as a result it does become quite tricky. It's a bit of a shame, as I say, but that is a lot to try and fit in to into the end of a season, really.
Straight, just to come in there quickly and just having a little look at the fixtures. Redditch and Lie Town don't seem to come up against each other, so there's not even the hope of that 6-pointer, unlike a couple of teams down in southern region that we'll come on to later.
Yeah, it's a really weird, because I went in to look at the Redditch Borough games, as I said, and I only actually called out 4 of them, which is a bit mad. So they're not actually physically sorted onto full time yet. So there was obviously some that have been postponed or moved, and those 4 haven't yet been rescheduled, it seems to be. So
The joys of FA full time.
Well, I'd plead the fifth right there, Stu, I think, on this occasion. But that's the West Midlands. It's going to be very, very tricky, I think, at the moment. Fun fact for you, if Redditch did stay second, they would be on 2.45 points. But obviously, didn't look down as far as Sheffield Town, to be completely honest with you. That is another potentially 33 points that could be added on to there. And generally, when we've been looking at those, that's 58, obviously, divided by 22, and 58 divided by 22 is 2.63. So it would be enough to put them up there, but it wouldn't, at this point, be enough if they were to win, as we say, all of their remaining games as it stands. So more on that later. But yes, it is not for them. So sad news, very sad news if you are in the West Midlands. Right, let's go down to one that Stu can give us a little bit of a chat about. And that is this one here, the Southern region, which is only 11 teams. Obviously, there is one that left because they were not able to play anymore. That name escapes me, but I'm sure Stu will tell us in just a moment. And or maybe you won't, I don't know. We'll all find out when we get there. I might have put him under undue pressure. I did not mean to do, so we shall see how that goes. But not a bad league going on here. You've got Wycombe Wanderers, who are flying at the moment, but Winchester City able to get there. Again, it's that points on the board, games in hand conundrum that's going on, and a big old fight as well for the relegation spot. So an exciting league still.
You say flying. Wycombe Wanderers have actually had 2 draws in their last 3 games, both against Southampton women. So the Sirens have actually put the brakes on their promotion quest a little bit and handed the slight potential advantage to AFC Portchester. I guess that despite not being top of the division, I would say they are still the ones to watch. Many of us will know that they've had a very good run in the Women's FA Cup this season, which is that, and having a grass pitch has played havoc with their league fixtures so far this season. They did have a little bit of a slow start, but that will be because they brought in probably double figures when it comes to players. You'll find quite a lot of last team's first team now playing in the reserves. They've obviously gone big for promotion this season, and so they've brought in some names that I would say would be at home in the 4th tier and even the 3rd tier, namely Becky Bath, formerly of AFC Wimbledon, and AFC Bournemouth. She can still perform at a really high level. I don't know the real ins and outs behind the move. I know that when she left Wimbledon, I think it was more sort of life circumstances. I'm purely speculating here, but I think it's one of those not uncommon stories that we have at this level, where you've got a player that has to balance a sort of full-time job, life, and sport. And when you've been traveling around the south of England for the best part of your adult life, playing football, sometimes it's nicer just to take the pressure off a little bit. And again, I'm purely speculating, but AFC Portchester are a very well-funded men's team. So that money, I believe, is starting to filter down to their women's team. So they've got players that are certainly being paid a wage. And that's probably quite appealing, especially when you are at this level. It would bring me out of retirement if someone wanted to pay me to kick a ball around. But they're a very good team. Looking at the division at the moment, if they win all of their games in hand, my crude maths behind the scenes a moment ago makes me think that they're going to be on 41 points. The fun story in this division is that this weekend, AFC Portchester travel to Adams Park, and on the final game of the season, Wycombe Wanderers travel to AFC Portchester's on-site stadium. So that is absolutely massive. You've got, so I guess that is that 12. If you've got 2 6-pointers, does that make it a 12-pointer? I don't quite know how the swing works. I've never come across that scenario before, but it's it makes it really interesting. I slightly think that Portchester are going into these games with a little bit of an advantage, given that Wickham, like I said, have had 2 draws. However, Wickham have been free scoring the whole season, and if they cannot get up for a match of this magnitude, then they're going to be in trouble, because Portchester will just be quietly behind the scenes. Just if they'll be taking it game by game, 3 points by 3 points, hoping that they can claw it back. Psychologically, if Wickham can get the win there, that could be absolutely massive, because Portchester still do have some tough games coming up. Winchester Flyers have obviously been flying, for want of a better expression. So they would go into any game in good form. They would fancy their chances. And Southampton women still have to go to Portchester's on-site stadium as well in April. So there are certain teams that would be very much up for spoiling Portchester's party. As I say, it's no secret that they've got a little bit of money. I'm not saying that they're sort of filthy rich, Newcastle styles, but in comparison to a lot of these clubs around here, they do have the money. So they are certainly the team to beat. They are going to be having every single one of their opposition bang up for it and wanting to spoil the party of the perceived big-time Charlies. However, Portchester are very, very good. Very, very experienced. They've got youth. They've got goals all over the pitch. And you can work hard to try and stop them. But I feel like it's going to be unforced errors. It's in their hands. It's theirs to lose. The only way I don't see Portchester clawing this back and sealing top spot is, unforced errors or just going into a game half cooked. But they've just got it's almost like youth football in a way, where they've got so many good players that you just feel like there'll be a goal that can come from somewhere. And I think this weekend's going to be fantastic. If it wasn't for Mother's Day, and if it wasn't for working in the evening, and it wasn't for being involved with Moneyfields, I would certainly be there. And if Wickham isn't the furthest for you to travel and your mum likes football, take her down there, or take her for a lovely breakfast or a lovely meal afterwards, because that game will be a really, really good one. And it's a shame it's not available to stream, to be honest, because I think it'd be fascinating. But obviously there are some stories in and around it, but I just think that's the most fascinating. I think Badshot, Lee, I think they're down. I think Woodley will scrape enough points within their games left to play to keep them up. Sholing, Oxford, Fleet, Reading and Beaconsfield, they're all of a sort of like a very similar nature. They'll scrap it out between them, and there might be a little bit of movement between that chasing pack. But the story is going to be Portchester and Wickham, and Winchester and Southampton Sirens as understudies at the moment, because both of those teams have quality. Both of them are really building to do something good for the next 2 seasons. It's going to be fun.
Very, very interesting. And again, when you talk about Woodley and Badshot Lee as well, very, very interesting for them too, because they are the last game of the season. So they will be playing against each other. And you would think if you are Woodley, you would like to have had that little bit of a gap going into that game, just to take a little bit of the pressure off. Otherwise, that could be quite a doozy on the 10th of May. Another little shout out as well, because this popped up whilst I was scrolling through TikTok the other day. But Wickham have got a player called Jess Watkins, and she's been putting out some pretty good content, actually, talking about Wickham Wanderers, and specifically her own journey to try and score 30 goals in a season. She's on 23 at the moment, but she gets you some good highlights of some of the games that are going on as well. So some good content there if people would like to jump on and have a look at it. So that's Jess Watkins on TikTok. And yeah, she's on 23 out of 30. So yeah, go over there and he says where you came from. Say All Women's Football sent you. Won't get you anything at all. You're not going to a goodie bag or anything. But she'll at least know who we are then. And then that would be great fun as well. So yes, do that. Right, there we go. That is the southern region. We're going to move from there into the London and South East, if you don't mind. And it's all going on down here, let me tell you. Massively so. Ebbsfleet just don't seem to play football at the moment, which is crazy. They are another one of those teams that are literally just over halfway through their season, but they've got so many games that they need to catch up on, and they are already 9 points behind the team in 10th, which is, of course, New Haven. So plenty going on down at the bottom of that division, but it's also going a little bit crazy up at the top. Brentford, with just 4 games remaining to play, the only other team that have got that many being Millwall Lionesses. And, of course, 3 points clear, but they are in that situation where they've got the points, but there are other teams just itching to overtake them. Saltdean being one of them. They are only 3 points behind, but with 3 games in hand. Dartford, 9 points behind, but with 5 games in hand, so could very easily get themselves over the line if they were to win those as well. So plenty happening in this division. There's going to be some really big games coming up, but also interesting to see that there have been some pretty high-scoring games happening. We've had a 5-4 between Barking and Dorking Wanderers. Dorking were a side that were really pushing for it last season. They've not managed to hit those heights so far this season, with mid-table looking more than likely where they are going to finish off. But we had a 4-2 between Dartford and Aylesford, which maybe you wouldn't have expected quite so much. It was still the win for Dartford, but a little bit of a shock for them there. And Sutton United win 6-0 against Ebbsfleet United as well. So some high-scoring games that have been going on. Saltdean beating Millwall was, of course, a good result for them as well. There are the games coming up. Again, there's County Cup, there's League Cup games, all those sorts of things happening. But I suppose the biggest one to look out for, if I can just find where it's gone again, was indeed Brentford against Dartford. That's going to be at the end of the month on the 29th of March. That one, probably one of the bigger games. Brentford will need to win that game in order to get Dartford just off track, just a tiny little bit. But those 3 defeats for Brentford, not very helpful, and could well be the reason why they don't go up. But yes, Saltdean and Dartford are the big 2 in that respect. If you support London, life's not looking too great for you at the moment. Most of the games that you've got coming up are against teams that are higher off and better off than yourself. Of course, Sutton United will be the first one. And then they've got Saltdean United, which they won't be looking forward to. Then they've got Dorking, which they won't be looking forward to. And then they've got Brentford, which they won't be looking forward to. And then they've got Dartford, which they won't be looking forward to. So if you're Sport London, you're looking at that a little bit like they used to in Tudor times. No, I'm not talking about Spurs and that goalkeeping travesty that happened last night. No, I'm talking about the fact that the executioner's hammer seems to be right above them as it stands. New Haven will be hoping that they can do a little bit better, and they've probably got the slightly better fixtures to do that. They've got Aylesford and Ashford Town, which are 2 big opportunities. They've also got to play Ebbsfleet as well. So you would think New Haven are going to be the team that will be safe. So if you're looking to go and stick a bet on down at your local bookies, I would definitely be suggesting that it's Ebbsfleet and Sport London to go down. But remember, betting is not big, it's not clever, and if you lose money, it's your fault and not mine. So there we go. That is the London and South. They do seem to always finish second, and this could be their year, Claire. I really do think it could be, but that's going to be tricky with Saltdean as well. So there we go. Her money is indeed on Saltdean. Anybody got anything they want to shout out about the previous two? I suppose I should say on this one, Saltdean as it stands, if they were to finish second, they would be on 2.77 if they won all of their games between now and the end of the season, which would still only be the second highest potentially. So yeah, Saltdean definitely one of the teams in the running for that place to go up. It's not a playoff, remember. So what will be happening in this is the two highest teams in terms of the points per game will basically be promoted as well. One into the northern ones and one into the southern ones. That's the plan, isn't it? Because with the tier fours, you've got the team in second in the southwest playing the team in second in the southeast, so they would replace a southern one there, and then a northern one for the Midlands and Northern Division as well. So I believe that's the way that's due to go. Yep, Stu, go for it.
Yeah, just come in here. I think just again, I'm just trying to do my crude maths with my abacus off screen. But if Dartford and Saltdean win all their games, bear in mind that they are going to be playing each other within there. They're on 49 points each. So it just goes to show that I've been talking about 6-pointers earlier, and it really is going to be absolutely crucial in those matches, because I think those three top clubs I put in as strong favourites to get all 3 points in pretty much every game they're going to play. Similarly, slightly to AFC Portchester, which you mentioned a moment ago, it's all down to them, to be honest. And it just takes that one game where you're missing a player here or there. Can somebody else step up? Are you going to be playing on a poor surface on a rainy day? Maybe too many games in a short period of time and a bit of fatigue coming in. Perhaps maybe that's Dartford's only worry. As strong as they are, they score goals, but the Saltdean and Brentford do seem to be scoring just that little bit more. With Saltdean having Georgia Bridges with 20 goals so far in all competitions this season, and Danny Lane, formerly of Portsmouth and Lewis. So she's someone with championship experience, championship ability. She'd be at home in the sort of third tier at least. So they've got some really strong players there, and it's really brilliant seeing how some of this talent is starting to filter down to the fifth tier, and maybe that's a whole episode in itself, just looking at how strong it is. I used to coach with Winchester Flyers, who we saw in the last division, predominantly with their reserve team, but doing a little bit of work with the first team. And that club is fantastic. They have huge playing fields where their youth teams play, and you go down on a Saturday morning and you've got anything from, bear in mind with you minis pitches, anything from 5 to 10 to 12 pitches full of matches going on, all full of goals. So that club has got a huge base of talent, and not just there, across the area and probably across the country. You've got a huge increase in young girls playing football. And let's be brutally honest, that pathway up to the highest levels is going to be very much a bottleneck, especially when we're talking about WSL levels, because you're going to find a lot of foreign players coming in, which is going to force homegrown talent down into the National League. And then that talent from the National League, maybe those that have got a primary income, are going to be forced down to this what did they call it during lockdown? The sort of non-professional or something. They had this almost insulting term for it. But the quality of Tier 5 is just really going up and up and up. I think just straight away, bear in mind that someone in and around Moneyfields who play in the 4th tier, I can tell you straight away, Dartford, Saltdean and Brentford would more than hold their own, and arguably would be finishing at least mid-table in the division above right now if they were promoted tomorrow. And I know it's not huge headline or a shock to say the top of one league is as good as the bottom of the others. But I'm not talking about the bottom. I'm talking some of these teams are as good as the teams in that sort of upper middle of the division. Just from sort of my own experience with Moneyfields, the league doesn't lie. We've got ourselves and Swindon Town that are ahead of everyone else. Bristol Rovers the best of the rest. But these three teams there, I think, got it to finish fourth. And that's going to be fantastic for the division next year. If we are getting a couple of teams coming up, I think we are going to see some traditional names that have been playing at this sort of level starting to drop down the divisions a little bit. Like if I was a Portishead fan, they've been absolute staples of the fourth tier for a little while now, but I think they're going to struggle. And when you look at the powerhouses that have this great catchment area of the outskirts of London, they're in a fantastic position that it becomes really, really difficult if you are based over down in the southwest with all of the biggest talent being funneled to your Bristol Cities, Exeter Cities, Bristol Rovers. So I guess as I wrap up my TED talk, isn't it brilliant to see the sort of the absolute talent that's on display throughout all of these divisions? It's great. We talk about it quite a lot about there's not enough streamed matches within the National League, and if we're not already, by next year, we're going to be starting to talk about this same thing, like the Brentford Saltdean. Since 71, we had a photographer that went down there, and it looked like a fantastic day. Brentford really went all out. They would have been gutted that Saltdean spoiled the party, but huge credit to Brentford. It would have been really easy for them to go, oh, I'll tell you what, let's wait for New Haven to come or something like that. But they went, no, let's put the top of the table clash in, and fair play to them. It's looking fun. I almost wish I wasn't involved in the football clubs and get around and see a little bit more of these games because I'm loving this level of football at the moment.
I know exactly what you mean. I have exactly the same thing. You know, you're trying to run a channel like this, and you'd love to be able to go out and put some focus on some of these teams that are going on around the divisions. But of course, you're chained. Sounds like such a horrible word, but you know, you're affiliated to this club that you love and that you really want to work hard with. So yeah, it does sort of get you. But I know full well that if I did just decide to drop the football club and go off and do this, then I would miss the camaraderie and the being part of a team thing. So the grass isn't always greener on the other 3G, is it? So
how many goals is Sarah Wiltshire on at the moment?
Well, we'll get to that when we do the next one, but I can confirm.
Oh, okay. Good. I haven't missed it then.
I could confirm it's a truckload. Is I believe the collective noun that we're going to use for that one. But we are going to say
did you say truckload? Because remember,
truckload, yes.
YouTube algorithms for the purpose of the tape. T Tango.
Truckload, yes, indeed. I hope it didn't sound that bad. Gareth, we're going to throw it back over to you because we have the Northeast Women's Regional League as well. And this one, not quite to the level of excitement, perhaps, as the North, or whatever it was, Northwest before. But there's a possibility. I mean, Thornaby win their 2 games in hand. They're still not out of it by any stretch of the imagination, but if you were Bradford, you'd probably be feeling quite happy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather be in Bradford's position than Thornaby's. I think Bradford have got themselves in a fantastic position. They are in County Cup action this weekend, actually. And not playing in the league, and then their run of games, I think, is relatively favourable as well. 5 games left for Bradford, and those league games are Harrogate, Pontyland, South Shields, Alnwick, and Harrogate again. So there's two games there against the side kind of towards the bottom end, and then some sides sort of in and around that upper mid-table sort of echelon. Thornaby's run of games to finish the season. They have to play Ossett United. They have to play Brunsmere, Pontyland, Wallsend, Sunderland West End, and Pontyland again, and South Shields. So they do have to play the two sides sort of down towards the bottom, but I think they have the games in hand. So that's assuming that they are the two sides against the bottom, win those two. They are still 2 points behind. I think it is advantage Bradford for sure. The middle of the park, you've kind of got these little individual battles sort of breaking out at the moment. Spennymoor, Alnwick, and South Shields, all on similar amounts of games, all on similar amounts of points. So they sort of seem to be kind of vying it out between themselves. Pontyland, not really sure where they're going to break out, but in terms of even if they win all their games in hand, they're still well over 10 points, or 11 points actually, off Bradford. So I think they are sort of out of the title race, but may well have a say in where it goes, given that they've got to play both those two sides at the top. And then I think we've got Brunsmere, Harrogate, and Wallsend again, sort of fighting for the kind of spots towards the bottom. But it does seem to me that Sunderland West End are in pole position for the drop, given they have earned 5 points this season, but had 3 of them taken away. They would need in their final 5 games to get as many points as they've got all season, and hope that Wallsend pick up nothing from their final 7. So, I sort looking at it, I would be incredibly surprised if Bradford City are not not incredibly surprised, but I think there would be some shock results come if Bradford City are not a National League club again next season. And I think I would be incredibly surprised if Sunderland West End are not a Tier 6 side next season as well. But I think, again, we can see the impact that postponements and things have had on this league. A wide range of games. Some teams have played 5 more than Pontyland have. But apart from Pontyland, really, everyone seems to be in and around the same amount of games played, which is not the same for every other league that we've looked at. So, yeah, I still think there are interesting stories at play here, but I think we do very much have a favourite at the top and a favourite at the bottom. Again, wouldn't necessarily like to stake any money on any of this, but I would be surprised if Bradford don't end up winning that league and Sunderland don't end up dropping out of it as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's one of those that looks the most done and dusted, probably out of the divisions we've looked at so far. But could still be a thorn in the side of Bradford City, depending on how it goes. We're going to take a look. You think that was bad for scheduling? Let's go over to the East Midlands. Now they've only got 9 teams, but this is the Keystone Cops of all of the Tier 5 divisions, I think, because it's wild. It was wild last year. I can remember it being wild and being a bit wacky and zany with how all of the games were going, and it's the same here. And it must be sort of like an annual thing, because SJR Workshop, they're on 9 again, and I can remember them being, along with Anstey Nomads last season, battling to make sure they didn't get relegated, and there were lots of late sort of games being played as well. And it's one of those where some teams had finished their season and there was still like 3 or 4 games to be played by some of the other teams around them. So you just sort of sat there watching, wondering what's going to happen. And this is just, again, one of those divisions where it's all looking mad. SJR Workshop are literally just over halfway through their season. They played 9 games and they've still got to play the remaining 8. Conversely, you've got most of the other teams there on 14 who've got 2 games left to play. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how you get to a point at this time in the season where it could be like that. So SJR Workshop, you would think, in this division, looking like they've got, only got to get 5 points. But as you said in the other one, that's still 3 points less than they managed so far in the first half of the season. So that's going to be a bit tricky. Wellingborough literally are down to all intents and purposes. They would need Anstey Nomads to lose both of their games. Wellingborough would need to win both of theirs, and they would need to have a 16-goal swing over those 2 games as well, which is not unimaginable, but it would be quite tricky overall. At the top of the table, Chesterfield and Loughborough Foxes Vixens, looking like the 2 teams that are going to be battling out. I mean, not just looking like, mathematically they are as well, because Rotherham can only make it to 31. So that's the end of that for them. So it is between Chesterfield and Loughborough Foxes. And oh, my goodness, there's a few games left for both of them. There's a County Cup final for Chesterfield as well. But yes, they've got to play Mansfield Town and SJR Worksop. So they're probably feeling quite happy about the SJR Worksop game, whereas Loughborough Foxes will be playing Rotherham and Mansfield Town. So Mansfield are going to have a big say in what happens at the top of that division. But yeah, I suppose, listen, I'm not going to necessarily ask you to comment specifically on what's going on in this division, but do we need to get to a point in this sort of tier where we don't have this level of disparity between teams, where you've got 1 or 2 teams that still have a ridiculously long season still to play, whilst other teams are sat there having played, virtually their entire season? Because that's so difficult, I think, in terms of scheduling, in terms of trying to enjoy it. I mean, if you're a fan of, and you'll see it in the Eastern region, Dussindale and Hellisden, I think they've got 2 games left to play, and then you look at all the other teams around, and you're looking at about 6 games that need to be played. Like, the season's going to be over for them in the end of March. They've got a County Cup final to look forward to, but that's it. The rest of the league is still going to be playing around it now. For Dussindale, it doesn't really matter. They're safe. There's no chance of relegation. There's no chance of promotion, but their season is over. What do you then do? You have that ridiculously long break between the end of your season and the start of the new one. Like, how does that work for you? It feels a little bit off to me.
Thing for me with this one, it is criminal that there's only 9 teams at this level. This should be 7th or 8th. I would like to think that those running the division will be working very hard behind the scenes to uplift it for the following season. And that uplift, that doesn't have to be that you're bringing in teams that are going to be pushing for promotion, but to have 2 divisions within there. So if you 3 more teams rounding it up, even if they're of a similar level, then you've got Wellingborough and Worksop, and maybe even Anstey. They've got some competitive games. You've got 2 divisions. Like, let's face it, a good league will most likely be split into 3. You'll have your top 4, top 5, hopefully a few more, your bottom 4, bottom 5, and then those in the middle. It's not surprising that a lot of clubs just fold mid-season because they're struggling, because these players, they're not pros. They're bouncing up the rest of their lives for the rest of the week, and they want to be enjoying their football. And if you're getting hammered 5 to 10 goals every weekend, like, full credit to some of the teams that, like, even Billericay at the moment, they're probably the highest profile at the moment. They're still putting teams out. MK Dons were doing the same. There needs to be a bigger uplift in some of these divisions. I've said that it's much the same in the Women's Super League and the Super League 2. To lift some of these teams up, it's actually quite, or for me, it's a bit of a good thing that you've got Sheffield United, Portsmouth, Ipswich, that are all kind of competing at that sort of level. There's a little bit of a relegation scrap. We're still ever so slightly.
This division, Stu, just to throw out there as well, is that this one actually has 3 Division 1s. They've got like a North, a Central, and a South. So they've got a further 28 teams below here. So there feels like there's room in this one to do what you're saying there and sort of have a bit of a reshuffle.
And I would also hope that the FA, as the ambassadors of the women's game, will be working with the division. But I kind of imagine that outside of those running the division, they're probably blind to it. The county FA probably don't have the power, authority, or probably, I'd love to know if I'm wrong, the interest in that, to be honest. I imagine there's probably been met with shrugged shoulders. Oh, no, team's dropped out. Oh well. quick season for them then. Yeah, that's a big. This is a big problem. Someone should be looking at that guy and asking questions and saying, "What are you doing?"
I think that is a absolutely fair and reasonable point. So there you go. That's the East Midlands as it stands. But yeah, it is just it's the wacky races of the eight, without question. And Claire asked, what was the Loughborough points per game? Well, they are on 2.29 as it stands, and they could end up on 2.38. So they would be seventh currently in our list of teams. So not ideal. That's how they could finish. So yeah, not too great for them. We're going to throw back over to you, Stu, for an area that you should know incredibly well, because it's where you're sort of based, not physically, but certainly in terms of this one. And that is, of course, the Southwest Regional. And again, lots happening here. Torquay sitting pretty at the top, but Forest Green Rovers just sort of coiled there like a little spring, ready to try and attack them if they can win their games in hand.
Unlikely. I think I feel really bad because whenever I come across this division, I'm always very much it's kind of done and dusted a little bit, but it kind of is done and dusted a little bit. The Gloucester City are a team that I like. I've come into contact with them in an FA Cup run, and they seem to be working really nicely behind the scenes. Forest Green, again, run very well, owned by someone I have a lot of respect for. Sherborne Town, they've been investing within their playing staff somewhat, but maybe it's probably come a little bit too late for them this season, and they're probably going to be ones that I'm going to be suggesting that people have really serious look at next season if they can keep their current squad or perhaps even add to it. But yeah, Torquay, I think that they'll see it through. I think they're a strong side for that level. After seeing them promoted a couple of years ago, they're not going to be pushing for a top four place in the league above, and that's no disrespect to them. I've touched on it briefly before that it is a very hard area to recruit the talent in, and if you were to put a league of sort of four or five teams from the top of the southern region divisions, I think Torquay would probably finish bottom of that. Even just the most recent comparisons with Dartford, Saltine, and Brentford. But if they're well managed, then the easiest way to success is shaving off all the best players from your opponents. If they can look around and say, right, okay, Sherborne, Forest Green, maybe siphon off a few from Portishead when their relegation's confirmed, then actually maybe they can have a good go, and that National League Division 1 Southwest can be a little bit more competitive. I do feel that there's such a disparity between sort of the teams at the top and teams at the bottom in that division. But there's a good little competitiveness in the middle, and if we can, what would be really nice is if in all of these divisions the bottom team can beat the top team. That's what we all want. That's what makes football great. And still, the issue that we have in a lot of the national leagues and it's tier 5 is that doesn't really tend to happen. But if we can uplift, then fantastic. That's what we want to see over the sort of coming seasons. Third, we want upsets. We want to see Saltash United going and doing Torquay 2-3-1, because there are no easy games. And while there are no easy games, there are very rarely any surprises.
Very, very rarely. We're talking about surprises. Bishop Lydiard are down in all but maths as it stands. They have 5 games left to play, and if they were to win them all, then there would be the most outside of, bearing in mind they have not won a game or even won a point as yet. But for the purposes of posterity, they would need to be able to defeat Sherborne on the 22nd, then Pucklechurch, then Gloucester, then AEK, and then Forest Green Rovers. And all 5 of those games are home games. So if they get behind them, you never know. You might turn it into a fortress, but it doesn't look likely because it is also dependent on Saltash United not winning a game for the rest of the season, and they have not been too bad, almost 50-50 in terms of wins and losses so far this season. So it looks like goodbye to Bishop Lydiard, but not until next time. When we come back, it probably will be. So there we are. One more league left to look at, and that is the Eastern Region. And I feel like this season I've done an incredibly good job of trying to separate my Sunday self and my usual sort of day-to-day persona from this channel and this show when we try and do it. But it's becoming increasingly more difficult for me to just sit there and remain neutral when I've seen what I've seen in this division this season. Now, we'll kick off with what's going on at the top, because there is just absolute carnage happening around the top there. Stevenage, which is, of course, for the purposes of posterity, again, is, of course, the side that I work with and do some of the media work with, and absolutely flying. Like, they really are. It is so good to see. This is a side who, after lockdown and when football finally returned, went out of the WNL Southeast for the only time in the last decade that 4 teams have been relegated, and Stevenage were one of those sides. And they hoped to go down into the Eastern Region and then bounce straight back, and it didn't happen because you had Sudbury and you had Royal Bedford and you had Luton, and all of these teams have gone on to do incredibly well and to get themselves up the divisions. And as a result, poor old Stevenage, we've been stuck behind. But this season, we got ourselves a new manager. Sean Lingham came in, and it's just been superb. They've made it to another County Cup final. They've made it to another League Cup final. And as it stands, unbeaten. Now, this is not just unbeaten in the league this season. Stevenage have not lost a game in the league since December of 2024, which is just wild to be able to say such a thing. It's genuinely just been an amazing, what we are now, March, 15 months in terms of football, and it has really shown. They went from being in 3rd position in 2025 to overtaking Royston to finish as runners-up, and since then Stevenage have been top of the table since the very first game of the season. So Royston have worked really hard at trying to maintain a decent title challenge, which has been obviously a little bit difficult for them in the fact that they have lost 2 games and drawn 1 more than Stevenage as well. Now, there's a really big game coming up on the 22nd of March, which will be the Stevenage versus Royston match, and it's happening at the main stadium for Stevenage, the Stevenage FC Stadium, formerly known as the Lamex, formerly known as Broadhall Way. And that's basically, it's not quite the title decider, but to all intents and purposes, if Stevenage win that, it's pretty much game over for Royston. You know, they'll be literally on a wing and a prayer in terms of trying to get that. But equally, if Royston do get a win over Stevenage, it'd be the first game, providing nothing goes wrong this weekend at Dussindale. It would be the first game that has been lost, as I say, in over 15 months, which would be just an outstanding record. And records are made to be beaten and broken, as we well know. So, yeah, that's a huge game for sure. But Royston, before they get to that game, will have to play Harpenden Town. Now, you would look at that league and you would say, well, you wouldn't be expecting too much there. Harpenden Town, 10th. They've got the 4th highest goal scorer, Sophia Amanor. She is playing at Harpenden at the moment, so she's doing incredibly well. I think she's on something like 24, 25 goals this season, which is a really good return for them. And you look at that, they've also just knocked Royston out of the League Cup in the semi-final stage. So it will be Stevenage against Harpenden in the League Cup final. And Harpenden went 3-0 up after about 7 minutes in the first game, in the first half, sorry. Royston did put it back to 3-2, but it was too little too late for them and they couldn't get the equaliser. And as a result, we're out of the League Cup final. So it's all been going on around there at the moment as it stands. So Royston have got to play Harpenden in their next game this weekend. I think it's at Harpenden. No, it's at Royston. So it was at Royston when they lost in the League Cup as well. So you would expect Royston to go on, beat Harpenden, and for it to be an 11-point game as they go into it. But like I say, a win for Stevenage will pretty much leave them, I think, needing just one more win at that point if they were to win. If they draw, it will take a couple more games. But lots happening there. It's got to go down to the striker that Stevenage brought in, which is, of course, what Stu was mentioning earlier on. Sarah Wiltshire is on 45 goals this season when you include the County Cup. She's on 42 if you don't. The 3 goals that she scored in that County Cup, we think, is the fastest hat-trick ever scored in women's football. It was something like 87 seconds. It was a crazy time to be scoring. She has been absolutely on fire. She's played for Spurs before. She was just come from Cambridge United and absolutely nailed it. It's been really, really good. So superb stuff from Sarah Wiltshire. And the other thing I should mention as well about Royston, they were 3-1 up against Atletico London at the weekend, and Atletico London brought it back to 3-3, which was, of course, the third draw for Royston. So what was a 9-point lead has become an 11-point lead as well. But yes, Sarah Wiltshire, 45 goals, absolutely crazy. There has been a lot of goals scored this season. Brooke Haylock from Atletico London, one of the important ones to mention there. She scored quite a few. I think she's on 29, which is the second highest. Then you've got Evie Clark on something like 26, 27, and she's at Bowers and Pitsy. So those would be your top 4 goal scorers within the league. And like I say, up the top, really going great guns. Royston on their points per game would be on 2.2 at the moment. The best that they can get to is 2.45. So yeah, a little bit crazy with what's going on there. So it's looking, touch wood, like Stevenage may make it back into the WNL this season. But of course, you can't count your chickens just yet. But where I do want to throw people's attention is down at the bottom, because Hutton were at the bottom of the league not so long ago, the last time we looked. And I said Hutton will need to pull their fingers out and actually get some results if they want to have a chance of staying up. And I didn't give them much of a hope. But they've only gone and done it. Their last game that they lost was 4-0 against Atletico London on the 18th of January. Since then, they played Watford Ladies Development, who you can see there in 9th, and drew 0-0. And that was the catalyst. They then went on to play Haringey Borough, who at the time were 3rd or 4th, beat them 3-2 away from home. They played Watford again, beat them 1-0 away from home. And then Bowers and Pitsy travelled to Hutton and they won 2-1, which is absolutely mad. They've done incredibly well. So getting those points, massive points as well. That's, if my maths are correct there, 10 points that they've managed to gain. They were on 4. This is what I'm getting at. And they've gained 10 points in those last few games. They've got 3 more left to play. And it might be a little bit harder for them. And this is where I feel a little bit sorry for them. They've got Wroxham, obviously, is the one that they've got a chance at, you would think. That's their next home game. But then on the 29th, they're due to face Stevenage at Stevenage. And then they've got to face Royston at home. So 2 teams that are still fighting potentially for that title. And there we go. That's what they've got to end up at. So they've not to be sniffed at. They're clearly fighting and scrapping to try and stay up. They could well do. Enfield have got more games within which to do it. But if I'm honest, having seen how they've played over the course of the last few weeks, I don't hold out too much hope for them, I have to say. But they have got some favourable games. They've got Watford away, Bowes and Pitsea at home, St Albans at home. They've also got to play Stevenage at home and Royston away, and then Royston at home as well. So their last 3 games very difficult. But if they could get 7-9 points out of those first 3 games, then they would absolutely be in with a shout of trying to get a little bit of survival. So that is what is happening in this division. It's mad. There's so much going on, and that could happen. It should have been pretty much done and dusted by this point. But as I said, Dussindale, you look at them, they're on 20 games at the moment. And so I can say they will be finishing their matches on the 18th of March. So they play this weekend. They then play Wroxham on the Wednesday. And that's it. Their season is over. And everybody else's season's going on until towards the end of April. So, yeah, it's a little bit mad, really. But there we go. That is the Eastern region, which is going on quite well. So, the last thing I've really got to talk about with regards to all of this, we'll just get that out, was, of course, the points per game. So, as it stands, the 2 teams with the best points per game are Thornaby with 2.62 and Saltdean with 2.67. And as it stands, Saltdean would be one of the 2 teams. If they won all of their games, they would go to 2.77, as I said. Thornaby would go to 2.75. But the team that would actually, if they won all of their games from here till the end of the season, that would finish the best with 2.78 would be Forest Green Rovers, as it stands. Now, that is a hell of a projection, because they've got to go on to win 9 games because there's so many games left to play. But projecting, it could be them. But at the moment, it does look, I would say, Thornaby and Saltdean looking like the 2 teams, which would work quite nicely. That's a northern team and it's a southern team. So that would go quite nicely. But what do you guys think? Are we happy with this idea of getting a couple of extra teams up this way? And is this all just a little bit too convoluted? Was there a better way to do it? Could we have had like a little playoff season sort of thing? What do you reckon?
I think it's so hard in this instance to do it any other way. I think if you look for playoffs, then you could end up with 2 northern sides or 2 southern sides winning the playoffs. If you kind of end up doing it in that sense, and then that makes it really difficult, and then you have to have lateral movement, and this way you kind of can. That could potentially happen as well, I guess. But it's sort of obviously I don't know, less likely. I guess it's expensive to have playoffs as well. If you end up doing that, you could do it regionally. I guess you could sort of do the 2 northern, 2 midland sides, and then the sort of 4 southern sides in a set of playoffs. I think it's difficult for the league like this to coordinate all finishing at the same time, let alone where sort of managing to finish by a time to then arrange a time in May to get playoffs done, when some leagues will run into May, probably others will be done in March. I think it ends up being really tricky to organise 8 different leagues that all run independently of each other to do anything that is universal. Whereas if the FA go, it's just going to be points per game and will uplift 2 sides, and that sort of makes it a little bit easier in that sense, in terms of just logistics. I think it would have been nice if there was kind of updates on this rather than leaving it for everyone to work out by themselves, and that's been a tricky thing. Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I think probably the best way to do it, even if like a playoff would have been more interesting, I think logistically would have been tricky. But yeah, I think we're looking at some really top quality sides that are coming up. I think the uplifting is good. I think it's good from the National League playoffs. I think it's going to be good here as well. And there will obviously be more uplift from Tier 6 and Tier 7, etc. So all positive stuff, I think.
And Stu, you mentioned Saltdean as being, one of those big sides that could hold their own. So actually, if Saltdean were to be one of the teams that went up, and to be fair, Dartford have probably got a shout as well, because as you said, they would finish on similar points. Either one of those, that's got to be a good addition to the southeast as well.
Yeah, agreed. The more the better. I've often argued that the pyramid is strongest at its base. The women's football pyramid is a bit top heavy with regards to attention, resources, and the more that it gets down, the more they bring it up. Then, let's try and we're still building in the middle a little bit, but hopefully we will catch up at some point. And I think it's fun. I think it's great. I'm really excited about the prospect of the playoffs. Although I must admit, if my Moneyfields team don't happen to win the division and end up in the playoffs, that is going to be happening on May the 3rd, my wedding day. So there's absolutely no chance I'll be getting out of that one. But on the plus side, win, lose or draw, I've already said that the coach needs to swing by the venue, and there will either be champagne or shots, one way or another. But yeah, I think the playoffs will be brilliant. I'd have them every year if we could.
I agree. I think it's been a really exciting thing to do, and I think also the fact that it's the team that's second that is happening with, the fact that we're not sitting there and going, the winner of this division plays the winner of this division.
Yeah,
it's a much nicer way to go. Do you know what? 2 teams that finish second, I think it'd be brilliant. Whereabouts would that game be played? Do we know that yet?
No, I don't think it's a breaking an embargo too much to say that no, that's not been confirmed. I imagine they've probably got
it's got to be sort of
on standby. Yeah, I imagine you have sort of on standby, but then it's also different. So just from our sort of southern region perspective, it could be Moneyfields, it could be Swindon. Realistically, Fulham are going to see that league away now. So it could either be Norwich or Swindon and Norwich or Moneyfields. So there's a bit of a disparity because equidistant for one isn't particularly equidistant for the other. So I imagine I'm just working out that I'm giving credit to those that organise it, that they're on the ball. They've probably got 2 or 3 different venues on the go, and then they're going to be going with the most convenient one.
Makes sense.
I have a feeling it's going to be one venue that will be used across 3 days for all 3 playoffs to be played at.
Wow.
Just based on some of the language that's been used, they've said venue to be confirmed rather than venues to be confirmed. And I don't know if that's me reading too much into it, but given the fact that it has been venue singular discussed, I do wonder if they're going to go for a big weekend of football in one place, but I have absolutely no idea.
That would be difficult. If you're going to do that, that's got to be in the Midlands then, hasn't it? Because you've got to try and get all 4 corners of the country in.
Yeah, but how that will be, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. They've not confirmed the venue yet. They have confirmed the dates though. So yeah, they are over that weekend. 1 game on the Saturday, the 2nd, 1 game on Sunday the 3rd, 1 game on Monday the 4th.
We need to put the statement out there that, as you said, and then we need to get all the English teachers that we know to work out for context. Could that work? Could that? I don't.
It also kind of depends, I guess, on what venues are available. Are these EFL sides potentially looking at playoff places? Because if they're potentially in the playoffs, then that's likely to be over that sort of weekend, which would rule out some grounds.
Carrow Road might be available.
Yeah, I mean, they're unlikely to be in playoffs. Well, they're not unlikely; they are not going to be in the playoffs. But then also like National League playoffs, I think, are that weekend. EFL fixtures that weekend. So it's all, I don't envy the people that are selecting the venues, but it would be good to know, even, just as a neutral more than anything.
No, for sure. Well, there we go. That is another one in the record books. We are getting ever closer to the end of the season and ever closer to knowing who it is that are going to be the teams that make it into the WNL, the Promised Land, as we like to call it. A pleasure to have you both with us, chaps. Thank you very much. And of course, you, Claire, as well, keeping us company in the comments. Lovely to have you along as well. Stu, Gareth, thank you very much. Anything you want to shout out from Since 71? Anything interesting that people could? And I'm sure there's something interesting, but anything specifically interesting that you would like to talk about?
Absolutely tons. We are blessed at the moment with a record number of contributors, and my output from a writing perspective seems to have dipped because I've been doing so much editing for other people, which is a nice position to be in. So we've got lots of nice stuff on there. A nice little story about FC Badalona that have been recently received investment from the Mercury 13 group. And that's not my terrible pronunciation of a Barcelona. It is their Catalan neighbours, Badalona. So yeah, have a little look at that. That's near the top. We've got a couple of little articles due to come out over the next couple of days. So hopefully there'll be something for everybody. But yeah, some fantastic photos. And keeping it within this, I would ask that you go and check out our shots from Brentford's game with Saltdean recently. Yeah, some lovely photos. We have something called photo diaries. The purpose of it is to capture the whole day. It's not just match action. Hopefully, I want someone that reads it and or sees it, looks at it to kind of really get a vibe of what's going on. And we've tried to capture what went on that day and the everything that went on behind the scenes, and the love from the fans to the players looked fantastic. And it really makes me want to go and watch a game there. So have a little gander at that game if you choose one article.
There we go. So there you go. Get yourself over to Since 71 if you are just jumping on and you missed out. Obviously, all of this is available for you to watch back. So do feel free to do so. Plenty of chat about all the different leagues. So do feel free to jump on. Do like, do subscribe if you have not already. But apart from that, we'll be back on Monday where we will be talking about the Sandwich Cup final, I'm sure, alongside all the other things that we throw into a 7-day review. And hopefully we'll be back here next week for Lower League Lingo, where I'm sure we'll be talking about tier 3 and 4 as we get into that final furlong that we need to run. Until then, have yourself a brilliant sleep. We'll see you all next week. Cheers again, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.